People sometimes comment on the YouTube site saying that, you know, it's rich people out having fun on a yacht. But let me tell you what, rich people don't pull out that plumbing out of their forward head compartment.
Yuck.
And this is a job that anybody with $5 to their name hires somebody to do.
So why are you doing it?
Because we're not rich.
Because you're a sucker.
I'm a sucker. I'm cheap, I guess.
Nasty.
All of this is coming out.
And what's Wendy doing?
Filming and loafing.
Loafing. Mostly loafing.
Mostly loafing. And this piping is all slimy. It's like it's covered in some sort of grease. I think it's just kind of
stinks.
Yeah, and it reeks. It really does. This is a job that needs doing. Oh, still sweating away here. Some Ephraim's bilge paint. Get this cleaned up. It's obviously not something that anybody sees, but it'll help keep it clean, make it a little bit easier, and just look nice. And that's the important thing, even if it's just for me. Here's what it looks like now. I've got this all kind of painted, ready to rock and roll. I'm gonna let this dry for a bit. I should make note of something, and that is that there are two types of boat designs. Well, there's many types of boat designs, but two general categories. Sometimes you'll hear people talk about liner boats, and a liner boat is a boat where, you know, with fiberglass, there's really only one side that's presentable. And as you can see, this is the inside of the hull. The hull was molded in a mold, obviously, with gel coat spray, a release agent first sprayed on the mold, then gel coat, and then the fiberglass was all laid up inside of it by hand. And so the inside is kind of ugly. So what a lot of the modern production boats do is they make another mold. They make an inside mold that has the presentable fiberglass on the inside, and they lay that on top of the hull. And in so doing, they make two presentable surfaces, but they also make it so there's a lot of inaccessible space, places that you can't get to. And if you have a hull breach someplace, if you hit a rock or something, you may find that you can't get to the place where it's been damaged, and that could be a problem. The oysters, and I don't know if they still do it this way. I imagine they probably do build joinery inside the boat by hand. And nowadays, all this stuff is CNC cut. It has a barcode on it and finish. Everything is recorded in case you ever need a new part, and it's done in a lot more presentable way. The newer boats are just unbelievable in terms of how cool they are inside and how pretty they look all the way through. This boat's probably considered a first or second generation, in terms of trying to get the joinery just right. This is all done by hand, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And it's everywhere around the boat. There's this great teak and woodwork everywhere throughout the boat. But inside, down in the bilges and stuff, things aren't quite so pretty. I did this little part here as well. It was kind of ugly and dirty. We cleaned it up really nicely, and then went after it. I couldn't get all the way back in by the piping, but it's okay. I'm happy enough with it. It'll look good once we put everything back together. I can't tell if this color is truly lighter than what was there. As it's drying, it's getting a little darker, and it seems to depend on where. I think the old paint was just dirty, really. So I'm pretty happy with the color. It doesn't look like it's clashing or anything. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a clamp for my camera, so I'm just gonna. So what I've been doing is just kind of using tape hanging down to support the sky shade, and then that way I can get it adjusted. I'm just doing it by hand. I tried measuring it, but it's just not easy to measure when you're looking at the ceiling. And the other one came out pretty good, I think. So, yep. And here I've got it kind of just taped, hanging. I can move it around and get it adjusted. so that these reveals are all the same all the way around, and little vinyl guys. And I think I just had to pull this back some. Yeah, just like that. All right, so here we go. We got both screen for netting, screen for bugs and such, and then on this side we've got a blackout curtain, and then the magnets kind of hooked together. Come on, there, on the end, so you can kind of pull them back and forth if that's how you like it.
This is the really fun part. We're trying to fit a hose through to replace the dead bathroom hoses, and we're having a really hard time getting it under this floorboard. It's really tight.
Although this is a wonderful product by all accounts, it just doesn't bend. It doesn't bend on tight radiuses at all. And so we're going to probably have to mix and match and use some of the PVC tubing that's kind of the lower quality stuff, but it's what was there before, and it fits. And I'm mad at the people who built this boat, because I know that they put this in here when the bathroom wasn't installed and everything else, and so now it's become very, very difficult to thread this stuff through. Not that it's easy most of the time, but this is just really kind of frustrating. I did pull the toilet, thinking that we could reach in underneath it and manipulate the hose, and I pulled it up and found there was no hole at all there. Having the pictures of the old diverter valves and all the posing is just an incredible thing. It's the most important part of all of this. We were not able to get this rubberized hose in through there. It's too rough on the surface. It's got kind of a cloth coating. It's also just incrementally thicker and very unwilling to bend. So we were, I didn't get any sleep last night. I was so stressed about getting this through. But Wendy was optimistic about it and jumped to it this morning and actually was the person who fed these through. And I just kind of pulled on the other side. I was able to reach my arm in far enough into that cavity to get hold of it. And let me tell you what, this is a job I never want to have to do again. It's a absolute bear of a job. When urine mixes with salt water, the salts can form on the piping, and it creates a scale. So you have to run white vinegar through the systems periodically. Often, in fact, we do it about every month or so, every couple of weeks. Depends on how much we're using the facilities. But just to keep that in check, the white vinegar will break down the calcium. It's worth showing the other side. This is the gray water tank, and down here is our bow thruster, big Vitas 6 kVA bow thruster.
Okay.
Excellent. The joys of Seacocks. Okay, so Panos, rock star that he is, was able to get this Seacock out of here in about 20 minutes, which was, in my view, absolutely amazing. That Seacock, I had sheared the shaft off of trying to open it. It was so frozen, and there was just nothing that could be done. So anyway, new Seacock. It's good to just replace them periodically anyway. So whenever there's enough of a problem, you just take them off. And honestly, getting that black hose off of the elbow was 3/4 of the battle. Wendy doing a very nasty job, which is just to clean and replace the joker, what's called the joker valve on this toilet, this head, and just generally cleaning up this bath. Yep, so been meaning to get to this, try to figure out what I can and cannot do with these pipes here. They don't smell too bad yet, but they will. They're on their way. And the problem I have is I know I cannot get that new rubber pipe onto here. It's just going to be too much. So I'm thinking that the answer may be to replace this piping with the new vinyl piping. You know, while I have the opportunity to get in here, it just kind of is the right time to do this. And of course, we have the new washing machine sitting over in the chandlery, waiting for us. And we're pretty sure that these pipes here have been replaced. They're not the same as the old. And in here, it's pretty stinky, and you know, clear that stuff has that this piping is not really doing the job. Down below is equally nasty. I'm going to replace this this diverter valve. All right, so this is kind of what it looks like when it's all put back together. Typically, it's all filled with clothes and shoes and everything else. So don't worry so much about the fact that there's a lot of little nicks and stuff along the back edge. I'll just have to hit those with a marker. You know, we use cabinet facing markers for this sort of thing. And then, you know, this is obviously just a quick access for if you need to get to the motors or pumps or other, and piping through holes, Seacock access. The Baby Nova washing machine is out. That was some bear of a job getting that out. But Wendy was a trooper and really did shoulder half the load on her own, which was admirable. Oh yeah, and here's what I look like when I'm working. It's just sweating. Like, it's not even that hot out. It's just exerting terrible work. I hate it. This is really about the only opportunity that you're going to get to paint something like this. So I went through and you know, repainted with the semi-gloss, the Efrins semi-gloss, how do you pronounce it? I don't know. Semi-gloss bilge paint, which worked pretty well in the gray color up front. So I went and got some white, epoxy that's fitting in through hall fitting. Okay, so there it is. I think Panas is probably going to come down and clean this up again. But like Panas says, if it spins even a little bit, then it has to be taken out.
Okay, so you live like that now, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And tomorrow you just with a
sandpaper.
with a paper, yeah. And you paint that. You can paint also that here, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Don't put your hands in there.
That's not. I'm not no idiot. I'm using a stick.
Yeah, there's a bigger stick there.
Yeah, as you can see, little bubbles. This is vinegar. We got this diverter valve and some various pieces. As you can see, the action of it. The vinegar is attacking the urine salts, and it's bubbling out, and that's a good sign. It means it's actually cutting it down, and this is why you want to run vinegar through the systems fairly frequently. Leave it there overnight. It won't hurt any of these parts. Here's the diverter valve that Wendy rebuilt, and it's all nice and clean and ready to go. We're not going to buy a new one. They're easy enough to swap out. So yeah, we're just going to leave. We're going to use this rebuilt one and replace all the hosing. These guys are getting their heads still up, all the boats still on the hard, and it's a good thing to do. You really want to have your sails on when you get launched. If you get out of the marina and your engine fails because something wasn't done right, or he starts overheating, you don't want to be dead in the water. You want to be able to sail out of it if you can. Okay, well, after a lot of back and forth between me and the boat, we've got the new piping all in. I used the less expensive PVC in these two locations, because I was really having trouble getting this piece to bend properly. The rubber hose just does not like to bend. Plus this is a lot easier to clean back here because this runs back to the back of the toilet. I think the cloth covered rubber is not going to stay very clean for long. But it runs through here and everything looks good. We've got our hookup for our washing machine, our new washing machine. And down below, this was the really difficult part to run. It just really did not want to go through these holes. But like everything else, you just have to work at it until it does. I'm using the PVC hose here as well to connect into, because it's just going to be too hard to get this rubber hose onto these fittings. The fittings on the tank are 42 millimeter, and the standard size here in Europe and also in the US is 38 millimeter, which equates to 1.5 inches. So I think these are actually 5/8 is probably what it comes to in the US size. So I decided to run 2 connectors in line for these two, and that way, if smells permeate the hose, at least it'll happen on a small scale in a kind of a contained area. Macerator pump there. There's a black water seacock underneath here for the macerator, and then over here there's another black water seacock for when you've got the diverter valve turned just to the sea, if you don't want to have it going to the tank. Well, here's our new clothes washer. The guys just came and dropped it off, and this is the old one. This is Baby Nova, which is very popular clothes washer because it's very shallow depth-wise, so it'll fit through most marine cabin doors. You get anything bigger depth-wise, you just can't get them into the boat. So anyway, this is the new version, and we're gonna install it here pretty soon. Oh boy, you know, we got it this far. Wendy was an absolute trooper as usual. The two of us brought this in here ourselves, and it weighs, I think, 46 kilos, which is, I don't know how many pounds. It's near 100 pounds. And it's hanging up on that front impermeable and odorless sanitary hose. So I got to put an elbow on it tomorrow. Otherwise, it looks like it wants to fit. Boy, it just barely fits on every side. It touches the macerator pump on the left. It's just a really, really close, tight fit. So, but I think it's going to go. I mean, by the measurements, it should fit. And so, we're just going to need an elbow on that tomorrow, and I've had enough for the one day. I'm just absolutely wiped out. Wendy did a quick load. I wouldn't call it a load, but she ran a cycle through just regular water like they recommend with soap. And I'm going to have to warn Wendy that we can never run this macerator pump dry. Impeller-driven pumps don't do well with being run dry. They need liquids running through them, or else the impellers blow apart. So I'm not even sure I can get this pump out. The clearance here does not look like it's enough, and I'd have to take the actual washing machine out. I know how to do it. It's more brute force than it is. Now that it fits, it's it's just, it would be something that would actually make doing an impeller change easier to have it out. But you run the risk of chipping the gel coat around the shower base, or something else going wrong. So I think prevention's going to be the best thing. It's just to try to. It's very hard to empty this tank. The button that you push is at the electric panel, and you can barely hear this thing running. It's really a 2-person operation to get the tank emptied. So, but job complete, and I'm pretty happy with it all. And yeah, we're ready to rock and roll. Tomorrow, the refrigeration guys get going on replacing our refrigeration. So Wendy's kindly come along and cleared out pretty much everything so that the guys can get back in there. there's a chase that runs down along behind there that I think that will help them with getting their hoses and piping through. And then of course underneath the settee here we have dedicated room for the refrigeration compressors. So the guys seem to know what they're doing, and they want to get started tomorrow. We have to get our keel coolers installed. The keel cooler is a sintered keel cooler. I've never had any experience with one before. We have 2 of those, so we have to core a couple of holes for them and install those and epoxy them in the whole bit before we launch. And we're launching next Wednesday, which is 7 days from now. And I think we're on schedule. We've got a lot of stuff still left to do. We've got to empty the container and fill the get everything in the container back on the boat. We have to repair our dinghy. There's a bunch of stuff. We have to get our sails up. We have to have a nice day with there's no wind. We can get our sails on the foils, and yeah. So and I'm just dying here. It's not even hot. It's not hot and it's not humid. I'm just sweating because I don't know. I'm an old guy and I'm working hard. It's pretty much what it is.